What would you say are the biggest benefits of person-centered care when working with adults with dementia as an SLP?
And so I think what's really important about dementia care is that a lot of times when people have dementia or the diagnosis of dementia, we think they lose their identity completely. They're all of a sudden, if they cook, they can no longer cook, or if they were a seamstress, they can no longer sew. They completely lose their identity with this diagnosis. However, with research, we've seen that that's actually not the case, and that it's our job as speech language pathologists to be able to modify an activity for their everyday needs, and that's person centered for them. So a really good example is if somebody's a seamstress and they say that they now have dementia, so they can't be with sharp needles anymore, or they can't remember to use the sewing machine safely. So we definitely want to be aware of those safety concerns, but also think about how we can still help maintain that activity, because it is a communication engaged activity. So what we can do is actually make cards, and the cards can be hole punched on the outside, and the individual can use a soft point needle and sew in and out. And then what the person can do is talk about the pattern that they just made with somebody else, and that will actually enhance their communication. So I think it's critical as a speech language pathologist, because we have such a role in helping these individuals maintain their identity. And how we have an identity is through communication. I mean, one of the first things people do when they meet you is say, what's your job? And they want to get to know you, and the way you share this is through communicating. So it's our job as speech language pathologists to make sure that they're communicating appropriately, effectively, and that they still have meaningful, purposeful communication. And we can only do that through creating person-centered activities and assessing with a person-centered approach.
How important is it to be culturally competent when administering person-centered care to adults with dementia?
In my opinion, you can't be person-centered without being culturally competent, because your culture is who you are, and that's part of your identity. So there's no way that you could do a person-centered assessment without considering the person's cultural dynamics in the home, or the cultural traditions that they have. So for example, when you're in a nursing home, a lot of the treatments or a lot of the discussions go on with the family members. But based on the culture that you have, some people, it may be offensive to go to the woman instead of the man in the society, or it may be offensive to disregard the grandmother who is as the elder for her entire life. So it's really important, because especially with dementia, sadly, a lot of times people say they can no longer make the decisions for themselves, so we have to communicate with these caregivers. So it's really critical, even though we know that people with dementia can make decisions, and we know that they are a person still and they haven't changed, that we still consider not just their own cultural identity but their family cultural identity, because we do have to interact with caregivers quite a bit. The other thing that's important with dementia and considering cultural aspects as well is one of the largest difficult behaviors that we see with people with dementia is bathing and grooming and eating, and those are all communication exchanges as well, but those are also differ a lot based on your culture. For somebody all of a sudden who is culturally sensitive, and then there's somebody showering them every day, that's a huge cultural difference that they could be very offensive in their society. Or for example, if now they're on a thickened diet and they can't have that piece of pie that's specific to their culture on a certain holiday. These are things that we need to be aware of, because people with dementia do have a lot of problems adapting to these new changes in grooming and eating. And it is our role as speech language pathologist to recognize why that problem communication exchange is happening, and to be aware of any cultural awareness or any cultural competency that we need to know, and not just always assume it's because the person with dementia can't communicate, or because the person with dementia isn't the same as they used to be. We need to consider the whole person, and to do that you need to consider one's culture as a part of it.